Difficult. Women.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. I'm just copying you. I'm playing the copy game.
Hi, I'm Katy.
I'm Marie. No, that's
No,
wrong.
we got you.
I'm Katy.
And I'm Marie. And we're on the internet trying to do a podcast. And what's that podcast's name?
Difficult Women.
Yeah. That's us.
We're also in a band called Reformed Whores. Check us out while you have a lot of extra time. It's a good time to listen to some funny music.
I've been re-listening to our stuff. We are incredible. I mean,
We're amazing.
I don't know if it's taken a pandemic for me to realize this, but we are the greatest female musical comedy duo in the history. I'm just saying it.
Yeah,
I'm saying it. I think we're great. Being
agree.
confident and positive these days.
Yeah.
How you doing in New York? We're podding in different towns because that's the reality we live in these days.
I'm good. I'm in Brooklyn still. Hadn't left my house in 4 days, so I took a walk today. That was very exciting. I do have like a kind of an interesting story that happened to me last week.
Let's hear it.
It's not that interesting, but it's the most interesting thing that happened probably. So my teacher from high school, my history teacher from high school, who's retired now, he used to teach this film class in high school. And I guess he decided to start teaching it for adults once a month in DC, where I grew up. So people have been taking his class. And because of Zoom, the school decided, why don't we host it on Zoom? And then anybody could take it from, alumni or whoever. And so I thought, okay, yes, I'll take this class. Have fun. Oh my God. There was about 100 people in the class. And it was a very much a active participation kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he would ask a question and nobody would participate.
Oh, no.
All these old adult people, like nobody was brave enough. So I found myself being like, oh, I'll answer this question. And the topic was women in film. We watched Tootsie and we watched 9 to 5. So I thought, like, this is my wheelhouse. I mean, I've never been more prepared for anything. Oh my God. The minute it was on me, eyes on me, I was thrown right back into high school. I have not been that nervous to do anything. And since I was in high school, my mouth went really dry. I was shaking. And then when I gave my answer that was kind of convoluted, he did not seem that pleased with it. And the shame and embarrassment was just so familiar. I just wanted to hide under the bed. It was awful. It was awful.
No.
It was awful.
Isn't that funny?
It was incredible. I was like, I have a podcast about feminism and I'm in the film industry. Why can't I feel confident in my response? And then, of course, there was like that guy on the call that was overly confident, and his answers were fine, but he wasn't smarter than anybody, but he thought he was. So his answers were really confident. And of course, again, the topic is women, women gender roles in film. And he's like he thinks he's some expert. Anyway.
I think that's amazing that you would do that you would sign up for something like that. And then to be on a Zoom call with 100 people is my complete nightmare. I was on one with my friends last night and I ended it early because I was like, this is too much.
Yeah.
But I think that's amazing.
It was funny. I started texting a friend who had taken that class too with me, or taken classes with him. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in a class right now with Mr. King and I'm scared. It's so stressful. And she's like, well, good for you for answering a question. You're so brave. I was like, okay.
Yes, that's exactly it. I think that's very brave.
Yeah. Trying.
Gold star.
Thanks. I just want approval. Just need approval desperately.
Well, I've signed up. I'm on the third week of Yale is giving their most popular class for free, the science of well-being. So I had to take a quiz and I was so triggered because I haven't been in school in so long. And all of a sudden I had to take a quiz and I got an 83 on it. And I was like, I passed, but I was like, now, bitch, I got to take this shit again, because you could just take it twice or something in a span of a week or something. So I took it again immediately, and then I got 100%. But there was no one to give a gold star or something.
Well, maybe because you were saying that in that class, so much of it is about, the answer to happiness is being with humans. Maybe your lack of human contact has made it harder for you to answer those questions now because everything is different.
True. But it was just like an old school quiz of, study the material, then answer the questions.
Yeah.
So I hadn't done that in so long, and it really got me nervous.
If there had been a quiz in this class that I took, I would have probably shat my pants. It would have been bad.
Well, anyway, way to go for the both of us for stepping outside of our comfort zones and, learning. There's nothing, that's what I'm trying to focus on. And I was telling my mom, like, if I come out of this, and I'm not trying to put so much pressure, but like, if I don't know another language by the end of this or
Chinese, you have to be perfect in Chinese.
That's what my mom said. I'd get right on it. But I did think, I thought it'd be really neat to find a unemployed Spanish teacher and hire them. So if anybody is an unemployed Spanish teacher, I don't want to do the apps or anything. I want a human being. So give me a call because I'm looking to hire a teacher.
That's great. Yeah, there's a lot of cool, I've been also taking a writing class. There's a lot of cool things you can do online right now. Oh my gosh, so many roller skating classes, by the way, on Instagram. Really? So if anybody cares about roller skating, oh my God, I've been learning.
Interested in tap dance.
I bet you there's a tap dance class somewhere.
That'd be good.
Anything you want.
This has nothing to do with anything, but I was so excited to tell you. I got the baby feet thing. The baby feet mask. So I applied it yesterday and my feet are starting to flake off and it is so cool.
It's so gross, but it's amazing. If you don't know what we're talking about, there is this, I think it's Korean. They're so good at beauty products. Where it's called a baby foot, and you put these little plastic socks on that are full of acid. Like literally, it's like a sock full of acid. That sounds horrible, but it's true. And then you leave them on for an hour, and then you take them off, and then in 2 weeks, your foot falls off, like totally peels off, and then your feet are just like baby feet.
I'm so excited.
They get real small. You have to buy baby shoes.
I can't wait for my new feet, though. It's something to look forward to. I've been so sad lately because I'm living with my parents. I want to feel like an adult again. But
you're gonna get some baby feet.
I gotta get the baby feet. Well, on a side note, real quick, I just wanted to shout out again to Brent Danger Rose, who we spoke about last week.
Oh, yes, it's exciting.
You guys, this made my day. Katy posted our little tag about our episode, and while doing so, tagged the guy that we talked about for a little bit, Brent Rose, but his middle name, which we just learned, is Danger. So you can follow him on Instagram, Brent Danger Rose, and she tagged him on Instagram, and he wrote back. And he got a little. I thought that I was gonna have internet love making. With this man.
Never say never.
Well, basically, he said, I'll just read just a little bit because it did completely make my day. But so Katy tagged him in the post, and he wrote back, I always figured that if I got mentioned on Difficult Women, it would be for being a difficult man. This is way better. Thank you for liking my sack.
We love your sack.
We love his go bag, his big old sack.
What also his ball sack.
And his ball sack. Oh my God, his sack is so yum.
Speaking of yummy ball sacks, if you
tell me more.
In the mood for some ball sack action, or if you're thinking a lot about ball sacks like we are, you might need to find a way to pleasure yourself during this quarantine.
Ooh, and I bet we have a good place for you to go to find some things that'll help you get some pleasure.
Free stuff is awesome, but free stuff to spice up your bedroom is even better.
Select almost any one item for 50% off, and then Adam and Eve loads on the free stuff.
Enter offer code HORIO at checkout and get 10 tantalizing free gifts.
A sexy item for him, a special gift for her, and a third item you'll both enjoy.
And 6 free spicy movies.
Ooh, plus free shipping.
That's HORIO, WHOREO, HORIO at adamandeve.com.
And we're back.
Yeah. So we'll just jump right into our topic. How about that?
I think that's awesome.
So what are we talking about today?
We are talking about, are women better leaders than men?
Yes. That wasn't an answer. I wasn't saying yes, they are. I was just saying like, yes, that's what we're talking about. Just to clarify. Sorry, that was very aggressive. Yes. Okay, podcast over. It's over.
No, but I do think it's fascinating. So we both were sharing this article. It was funny. I was texting Katy this article that came out in Forbes about what do the countries that are doing the best to combat COVID-19 have in common? Women leaders. And I sent it to Katy, and then Katy was like, I was just reading this. I was just about to post this on our Facebook. So
Yeah,
it's a great article. If you haven't read it, it's in Forbes, but it really kind of breaks down different countries and, how their female leaders have handled it.
I mean, I would say that the overarching theme is that a lot of these female leaders just shut everything down real quick. That was one thing, and that they just trusted the science and they listened to the experts and they said, okay, they say we need to shelter in place, and let's shelter in place. And they didn't hem and haw like what we're seeing in Florida right now, where I don't know what is happening in Florida.
Oh my God, I'm so scared for all my family down there, but
I know, it's terrifying.
Jesus, it's so bad. That article talked about other countries, but also here in the US, I didn't know this, but there's a woman that is running who shut down San Francisco even before the governor of California said to shut it down.
I actually remember when that happened. I was really surprised because this is before we were talking about New York wasn't shutting down yet.
Right.
And that she shut it down really quick. And it was about to blow up with a lot of cases. And now I have a cousin that lives out there, and it's much better than it had been. So yeah, there's something about these female leaders that happen to just be like on top of that, and they're quick, they're very decisive. There's been a lot of following of the facts in a lot of these females. And we're not seeing that as much in some of our male leaders, like Florida. But so this is like the question, because then you posted something on Facebook right before we went on to record this about asking kind of our fans, like, do you think women are better leaders than men? And there's not like crazy pushback, but then the debate really becomes, are they better leaders or are they as good leaders, equally good, And I think that probably, well, there's some scientific truth to the idea that women can be better leaders. There was a Harvard Business Review did a big study, and they found that in some of the top places where you need to be good at in leadership, so like initiative and resilience and practice self-development and drives for results, displays high integrity and honesty, women actually test quite a bit higher than men do in those areas. And the list goes on. It's even more than that. So there's some argument that women are actually better leaders than men.
So much data that supports that women could possibly be better leaders, but we just haven't had the opportunity to prove this.
Well, and what's interesting is that in the same Harvard Business Review study, they tell us that, women are doing better with these qualities, but then only 5% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women, and only 2% of S&P 500 CEOs are women. So in a lot of these really high-powered leadership roles, 5%? 5%.
Right.
That's like
5%.
very small. That's a very small percentage.
Well, I thought what was so interesting in that study, as a man grows older, are they a better leader? You would assume, hopefully a person would just grow wiser, but it actually said that men kind of plateau and women rise above the older that they get. And I don't know. I just find that it's interesting that as men get older as leaders, they don't ask for feedback. They just assume that they know. Whereas women still, the older they get, they're constantly trying to take action to improve and open to it for discussion. And so the older the men get, they just like close themselves off and think that they know the answer rather than asking their peers.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is that communication was one of the things on the list that makes for a good leader. And women are known for being better at communicating than men. And, we're always accused of talking too much and things like that. And I think communication is a big factor in working as a group versus trying to do things on your own. And I think that this is all very general. These are all general concepts. But I think generally women tend to function well in a community setting just historically and generally. And the other thing I wanted to say about your thing about how men plateau at an older age, one other thing they mentioned was that the women tend to have less confidence than men do when they're under 20. But by the time men and women are in their 40s, they have the same amount of confidence. And then this crazy thing happens after 60 where women's confidence keeps going up and men's confidence starts to go down. And I was thinking about what that's about. And they even said in the article that even at that under 25 age range, not only do men just have more confidence, but they're overly confident. They over they're overly confident in their abilities when maybe they're not so good at something. They're actually thinking like, I'm the best at this ever. Whereas women are totally cut themselves off at the knees and never give themselves enough credit. So I wonder if it isn't something to do with, you know, if you're young and you're confident, you think you know it all, then life kind of knocks you around a little bit and you realize that you don't know it all, so that then you have further to fall in terms of confidence by the time you're 60 and you realize like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Whereas if you've had very little confidence starting out, then you slowly learn how to build your confidence. I thought that was sort of an interesting trajectory from both sides.
Well, I was watching a TED Talk on why are so many incompetent men leaders, and it's confidence versus competence, and
Right.
that we in our society really idolize these people that are confident, that like have this like self-awareness and self-admiration for themselves, kind of like Kanye and Kim Kardashian. It's like people just love them, but what the fuck do they do?
Well, Kanye is like one of the best rappers that's ever existed. But yes, but I also agree that and
I guess
sometimes
more the Kardashians, but like
Yes.
they're just famous for the sake of being socialites or whatever.
Right.
But people love them, and it's the same thing with fucking Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that's why these people are not competent, they're just confident. And so what we have to do better, especially going forward and starting, to vote in November, but we have to be able to be better to judge these leaders and really understand what makes a good leader. And that is not a confident, charismatic narcissist. It's more of like a competent, a person with integrity, someone with humility. And those qualities are generally, and this is, again, we're just generalizing a lot, but like if we really focused on what we wanted in a leader and these things that actually have proven in all these scientific studies that make a good leader, there would be more women leaders.
Yeah. So that was another question that I was sort of asking myself too, is what's going on here, right? So that was an interesting thing too, is if you ask people, do you think women are better, worse, or equal to men leadership wise? There was one particular random study. I don't know. Maybe it's different depending on where you go and who you ask. But there was this one sort of broad study where 2% of people said that women were better. 21% said that women were worse. But then you can't ignore that there's this big swath in the middle of like 70 something percent where they believe that they're equal. So like, let's just look at that for 1 second. So we're saying that if we were voting, right, for a candidate and 70% of the people thought, well, it's equal, then they should be getting an equal portion of votes, And I mean, Hillary won the election, quite honestly, and if we're going to go into those things. So there seems like some people they really do believe that. But then there's a lot, but then also what's going on with this 2% CEO thing and what is that about? And I think what struck me is that you can take, especially if you come to someone that doesn't really believe that women are better or what doesn't believe women are even as good. If you start breaking down like, okay, well, we did a study and women are better at taking initiative. Women are better at resiliency. Women are better at helping others develop. These are all important, leadership skills, right? A person can go, oh yeah. Oh, interesting. Oh yeah. But they're not always able to make that connection then between, like, they can agree that a woman is good at being resilient, or at least equally as good, they're good at taking initiative, or at least equally as good, but they can't always add all those things together. And what is it that's standing in their way? And there's things like unconscious bias,
Mm.
you know,
Right.
where there's this, even if their facts are in your face, there's a general feeling that women aren't strong enough to lead.
Well, a lot of people were saying that if they were forced into war, if it was like a wartime in their country, in America, whatever, they would want a man to be in charge rather than a woman.
Right. Well, you know what's funny about that is that Obama famously said not too long ago that it's time to have a woman leader because women would be better leaders. We wouldn't be in all these wars and that all that stuff. What's proven to be true actually is that it's found that countries that have women leaders and prime ministers and presidents, they participate in more violent disputes. Partly because the women are considered weaker, so these women leaders feel like they have to overcompensate and then show that they're going to be strong within like a wartime scenario, which is unfortunate. And that's also plays into, there was another sort of concept around that, which is this sort of bossy boss, like a woman boss that's like a nasty boss. And whether or not, like, I don't know if have you had an experience with a boss that was a woman who was just like god awful and one of the worst, like, meanest bosses ever?
Yes. Yes, I have.
She's supposedly a leader, right?
Right.
And she's no good at it, and she's really nasty and maybe does a bad job. There's two things. One is that, like, that's a stereotype that women are bitches or whatever, women bosses are bitches. But there's actually a real thing, it turns out, that happens with that, where women, again, it's an overcompensation thing. So if you're competing and you feel like there's not enough spaces for other women, you have to, like, you're not working with other women to build each other up. You're not supporting your teammates. You're trying to show how tough you are because people don't take you seriously. So it becomes this, like, vicious cycle where, like, if we don't trust that women know how to lead, then women start overcompensating in bad ways, and then they don't lead well. So
Right. Well, Nancy Pelosi has said famously that if you are running as a woman, to just embrace who you are, don't lean in, don't buck it up, don't try to be a man, just be yourself because there's no one else like you. And that actually goes towards men too, that men who are wanting to lead, they don't have to man up or anything. They can actually adopt those female traits as well. And hopefully that in our psyches, we don't not vote for him because he's not manly enough, or, I mean, it's all this, like, our unconscious bias, I think, that's happening. My mom, I was just saying to my mom what topic we were talking about because I'm living with my parents, and so we talk about everything. But she brought up Catherine the Great and what made her so great. And she ran, how many years was she the queen for? 300? I don't know. But what made her so great, and that it kind of, what I gathered was that she really listened to her advisors, and she had lots of advisors. She also had lots of lovers too. But also, she was into the Enlightenment and making the rich richer and the poor poor. But she I don't know, she was really she had a lot of people helping her lead, and she was open to hearing them, which I think is a female trait.
Yeah.
In some sense.
Yeah.
Not to generalize.
Well, it's funny too, because I think that it's also worth, like, the big question I think I was asking myself too is, like, is it so much that women are better leaders? Like, women should all be leading more than men? Or is it more a question of that women are just as capable as men to be leaders? Yeah. And I think that I lean much more toward again, generally, women are just as capable. And what we're seeing too is that there's some really bad female leaders out there.
Sarah Palin!
Yeah, the governor of South Dakota right now is screwing the pooch with this COVID response because she's kind of going along with this idea that we don't need to listen to the experts. So even this idea that women listen to experts more, it's not always true, and
right.
That we can understand that too. So I think that I think that what we really need to, instead of worrying so much about having this argument of like, well, women are better, because then people get so resistant to that idea. A lot of men freak out when you're like, women are better at this. They're like, ah,
Right.
So I think, what if instead we start saying like, women are just as good. Why aren't you voting for them? Why are they not, making their, why are they not moving up the ladder the same way men are? Why are they not, leading the countries in the same way, or leading as many countries as men are? And one thing in terms of workplace stuff, I was looking at advice, like what we can do and why we're being held back and why we're holding ourselves back, it is come back to confidence a little bit. Women, the men don't need it so much, but the women need to have more confidence in their abilities. And historically, women don't push themselves forward as much because they don't think that they have all the skills. We talk about this all the time, but those women that, when you want to apply for a job.
Mm-hmm. Women that won't apply for a job when they don't meet all the skill sets that they're asking for, but a man certainly will.
Yeah. And another thing that she mentioned that I had not really thought about, and I think I definitely fall into this problem, is that when they're, when you need, money for something, right? Like, let's say you need like a producer for your film, or somebody to, invest in your company. She said that a lot of women give up really fast. So if they get a no, they just think like, oh, a no's a no, so now I'm not going to get the money. Whereas men have a tendency to then keep asking over and over and over and over again. And I think women just aren't trained to do that. I think women aren't trained to believe that they can ask over and over and keep pushing. And she said, so it's important to keep pushing forward. Don't give up on these ideas, even with one particular company or investor or whatever. But also to when you hit a roadblock, keep finding other ways to get around that roadblock. And that's what a lot of men do, and women tend to just not do as much. So that's on us, and it's on us to teach our young women to stay motivated. And she said one thing we can do as women for other women is that if you are a woman that has pushed through and made it forward, to encourage then the women around you to not give up on their ideas. There's so many ideas that don't come to fruition because women are like, oh, it's not a good enough idea, and they give up.
Yeah, it is all about confidence. I was trying to think of what women leaders that I've personally worked with what have they done that I've really admired in the past. And I think a lot of them have been like really good problem solvers and kind of open and not afraid to fail. I think that is a big thing that I've kind of observed from women that I've really admired. This other thing that I was reading, though, women tend not to rely on favors as much as men. So therefore that they have to work very doubly hard to earn respect. And then they truly believe that they can influence their own advancements by serving others.
Well, I think that also what happens is that women, and I think minorities too, feel this way, that if you give me a favor, then you're going to say that it's because I'm a woman and I couldn't do it myself. And people will say that stuff, or it's because I'm, I'm, Black and I can't do it myself and I have to work twice as hard. So there is this sort of, it's self-imposed, but I think it also is culturally imposed that, there's men that take favors all the time and nobody bats an eye, but if a woman does, then it becomes a sort of a different thing. But we have to start building an environment where that's not the case. This other woman had another piece of advice that reminds me of that, which is that she said, especially in some of these very male-dominated businessy type environments, things like going to play golf are a really important part of the business side because that's where people make connections. So some women feel really held back by that because they don't want to play golf. They don't feel like they're part of that club. They don't feel like they're really included in that club. And so she was sort of reflecting on that and what one can do to overcome that. And she said that in this meeting she showed up at, it was all these boys. They had all gone and played golf the day before. And she felt really sort of blocked out of the conversation, and they had built this bond and she felt like she wasn't a part of it. And she found that if she could try to make a connection though with them, it would help open that up. So in her case, what she said was, she's like, I don't like golf. I don't want to golf. So she asked one of these guys, "What do you like about golfing? What is your favorite part about golfing?" And he said, "Oh, I really like being outside. I like being out in the outdoors and walking around outside and getting some exercise in that way." And she said, that reminds me of my gardening. I really like gardening because I get to be outside in nature and working on something that focuses me." And he was like, "Wow, that actually sounds really familiar." And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "Now, every time gardening would come up, which it would come up from time to time, he would go, 'Oh, Jill likes gardening. Come over to the conversation. Let's talk to Jill about gardening.'" And she was like, "So I was able to find different ways to be part of that community and not have to be something I wasn't, you know?"
Mhm.
So she really encourages women, instead of saying like, "Well, it's a boys club and they won't have me in it." She says, "Where can you find the connections?
Mm.
Where can you connect with people? Where can you build those bridges so that you
Mhm.
can be part of a community? Even if it's not the golfing part,
Mhm.
Maybe it's your love of scotch." I don't know.
Oh, man, we love scotch, don't we, Katie?
Oh, yeah.
My favorite part of golf is just the golf cart, but we know that too.
Yeah. Well, I don't need that. We can just call it a cart. We don't need the golf cart.
They'll be like, "What's your favorite part of golf?" And I'm like, "Just
Cart.
driving the cart around drunk."
Yeah.
Well, also, I think that it's important to say that so many people say that women can't lead because they're too emotional, which drives me the fucking batshit crazy. But I read this thing that instead of saying a woman is emotional, just say like AOC is passionate. She's passionate. She's driven. She is on the road to finding an answer, and she's passionate about it. It just drives me insane when, I mean, we've talked about this before on the podcast, but they'll show clips of other female leaders and call them emotional or a witch or a bitch or whatever. But it's not emotional. It's passionate. And I'm going to start saying that.
Well, they would never call, Bernie Sanders emotional, and he's very
No.
passionate,
And he's very passionate. Right.
And it's a
Yeah.
double-edged sword. And I think another thing I just was sort of ruminating on is, well, how do we change this language and these ideas and these tropes and all that? And one of the problems again, historically, and I think that this is changing. I do actually believe that this is changing more and more in the last 10 years or so. But a lot of times when women and minorities make it up the ladder, then they block out other women. They don't reach down and it has been proven time and
right.
time again, when
Right.
a woman finally makes it to CEO, she does not hire more women. If anything, she hires less women. And some of those reasons are because, again, people feel like there's not enough room for more than one woman, or, you become like a token woman or something, or a token minority and whatever it is, and that there's not enough room for it. So you feel like you're in competition with other women. But also, in addition to that, it's sort of similar to what you were saying before, is that women also feel like, if I get to this top space and then I start helping other women, people are going to see me as, having some agenda that, to help other women, and not, that I'm not taking this job seriously, or that there's some sort of form of weakness there. You're seen as weak by trying to bring more women into the thing. And we got to stop that. So that's a woman problem, that we need to stop that. If you are a woman in a position of authority, don't just blindly hire women who are not qualified for the job. But we know so many people that are, so many men that are hired into good positions that are less qualified. So if you see a woman that is more qualified, hire the woman, for God's sake. Start mentoring other women, young women that are trying to get into your business. There's just not enough of that, because then once we have an environment where it's 50-50, then these ideas of women are more emotional, it's just going to go away finally, because there's just going to be too many women around being like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
But if you only see one woman, then,
Right.
and she gets mad once, then it's easy to be like, "Oh, is it that time of the month?" or whatever.
Right. Right. Well, this discussion is dedicated to Elizabeth Warren. I know she hasn't really publicly come out really to talk about sexism and what she was up against during her presidential run, but can't wait to read that article.
Yeah. She
'Cause I know
definitely
she
struck me. Yeah. She struck me as a candidate that was and this shouldn't be a thing, but it was almost that she was too qualified. People felt like
God.
uncomfortable with how qualified she was for some reason.
Right. But
And
if she had been a white older man, would you say, "Oh my goodness, this white older man is too qualified for this"?
I mean, no, I don't think it would be the same. I think that the proof in that is that Bernie made it further than she did.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's part of it. It's really, really great that we're starting to be able to all say slowly but surely that women are as qualified or as capable of being leaders. But then we got to put our money where our mouth is a little bit more. One thing that has been really promising, so not to just be shitting on this, all this, is that there have been a lot of women that were voted into Congress this past election. The AOC wouldn't even be there if it wasn't part of, this movement that's changing. So there's hope in that. I do think there's also that weird thing that happens where people tend to feel really comfortable with women in these like middle management positions, but then they don't always feel comfortable with them at the very, very top. And, the Congress is a little bit like that in a sense where it's like sort of middle management, you're not quite the number one person, but you're still up there. So that'll just be the next step to kind of get through. That's another thing my roommate always says, by the way. She always talks about how she believes that a lot of people don't want to vote for women or don't want to have women as leaders because a lot of the middle management type leaders, those managers are women, and that a lot of the men and women that are under them don't like them because they don't like having somebody tell them what to do, and they don't like having a woman tell them what to do. So if they're unhappy with their managers who are women in those levels, they are less likely to want to have, pick a woman for a leadership position.
Well, something I'm looking forward to is who Joe Biden's going to announce as his running mate.
I'm so curious. I'm personally interested in him picking Stacey Abrams.
Yes. Oh, I just think that'd be really cool.
I think that would scratch a lot of itches for people. I think would be a great leader.
So qualified. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's something to look forward to because he did say it's going to be a woman. So
yeah, I hope it's not Sarah Palin. I mean, there's definitely women he could choose that I would not be that excited about. So,
that's true. Okay. Joe Biden, if you're listening, come on. Stacey Abrams.
I know he's listening. This is his favorite podcast.
This is his favorite.
For sure it is.
Well, this is fun. I think that this has been a really great discussion. And so I think that what we've discovered is that are women better leaders than men? No, not. We just want to have equal playing field. That's all.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Right.
Although, sorry to say there, but it's just no.
Yes, your initial. Yes,
I was right. No,
you're right.
No, but just that we need to get more women. And I think the other takeaway is that women out there, if you're listening, and I know you are, you can step it up a little too. There's things that we can do. This is not about like men getting on board on its own. It's also about women stepping up and saying and taking it. Let's take those positions. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Take it.
I mean, I don't know about you, but a lot of my women friends are fucking stepping up right now in their families during this pandemic and really, being the head of the household and showing everybody who's boss. So we see you, all you working mamas out there that are trying to balance everything. I don't know how you're doing it, but we see you and we love you, and go women.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Write us in. Let us know what you think. What did we miss? I feel like we missed things, but I don't know what they are.
I don't know. I think that we're doing A-okay. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys, to Difficult Women Podcast. Email us, difficultwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Patreon.
Yep. You can follow us there if you like. We have a special podcast that we put out just for our Patreon patrons. That's a mouthful. And if you also want to help, but you don't want to give us any money, that's fine. Just tell your friends about us and spread the music around and spread the podcast around like COVID-19. Just get it around there.
Well, on that note, thanks for tuning in. We love you. Stay safe and wash your hands.
Bye.
Come home from my trip to IKEA, excited to build, but then I see ya. You say, little lady, I'll show you how it's done. Now I know this dumb shit's begun. Cut to what should have been a 10-minute task has turned into a 3-hour pain in my ass. I don't need any help with those shelves, 'cause I've done it billions of times before all by myself. Hey dude, don't tell me what to do. Just 'cause you got a penis, that don't make you a genius. At the meeting, I sit next to my boss, Chris. I prepared all my notes, I know I got this. When it's finally my turn to speak, that man, I'll step out to the John for a leak. You don't listen or you talk over me. And if I complain, then you call me bitchy. But that great idea you're getting high fives for, I said that same idea 5 minutes before. Hey man, don't think you understand. Just cause you got man parts, that don't mean that you're so smart. You can have your own opinions, that's not the issue. But no need to condescend or patronize. Don't tell me my lived experience is untrue, just cause you got a dong between your thighs. And here's an FYI for us white folks, this don't just happen between women and men. We do the same thing to people of color, so it's about time we start listening to one another. This morning when I turned on the news, I saw the White House was chock full of dudes. Now how are all these guys with dicks gonna make up decisions for us chicks? I brought it up to hear my bow to scream, cause I don't see your degree in gynecology. You think you know it all cause you have a ball sack. But what you don't know is this pussy grabs back. Hey guy, I'm tired of being shy. Just cause you got a D don't mean you went to MIT. Us ladies have got our own brains, so we don't need you to mansplain.
Get it? Yeah, it's not cool. Don't do it.
Okay, bye.